Did you know that the very first major e-commerce company was founded all the way back in 1979?
Yeah, which is crazy because that is over a decade before the World Wide Web even existed.
Right. And today, in this hyper-optimized digital marketplace, it actually costs up to 5 times more to acquire a new customer than it does to keep an existing one.
The math behind keeping a digital business profitable is just ruthless. We tend to view massive online storefronts as this modern, almost futuristic thing, but the architecture has been evolving for nearly half a century.
I mean, building a system that can handle global transactions is one thing, but building a system that can actually retain the human beings making those transactions is an entirely different science.
Oh, absolutely. It's a completely different skill set.
And that is exactly why we are doing a deep dive today. Welcome to Managing the Future, the MIS podcast. This is the show for Dr. Sam Pack College of Business students at Tarleton State University and, any working professional interested in management and information systems.
Glad to be here. We have a lot of ground to cover today.
We really do. Today, we are unpacking the source material for Module 10, which is e-commerce, and we are pulling this specifically from ConnectMaster. Management Information Systems by Richard Tedmon and Casey Wilhelm, the McGraw-Hill 2026 edition.
It's a great module. We are going to look under the hood of global digital storefronts to understand how they actually operate.
But before we map out this whole digital landscape, we should probably build a quick bridge from our last session, right?
Yeah, for sure. So in Module 9, we spent a lot of time analyzing ethics and privacy concerns.
Right. That was a heavy one.
It was. We really had to separate ethics, which is the structural framework for virtuous decision-making, from morals, which are the actual resulting behaviors.
Practical application of it.
Exactly. And we evaluated the 5 dimensions of ethical behavior, specifically focusing on information rights, property rights, control, accountability, and the overall impact on quality of life.
And we looked at the mechanisms driving those massive privacy risks, too. Big data, tracking cookies, spyware, packet sniffers, analyzing data as it travels across a network.
It's a very precarious environment out there.
It is, but that connects directly to the foundation of Module 10, because e-commerce cannot exist without consumer trust.
No, it really can't.
You just can't successfully sell online if consumers don't trust you with their data, their credit cards, or believe you are operating ethically. The ethical foundations from Module 9 are the exact bedrock required for the massive digital storefronts we're exploring today.
That is so true. Trust is the ultimate currency of e-commerce. I mean, you can have the most advanced logistics network on the planet, but if a customer believes your data practices are unethical, they will just abandon their cart.
Yep, they are gone. So before we get into the mechanics of those networks, just a quick reminder for you to like, subscribe, follow, share, and comment.
It really is the best way to stay updated with the course material and join the broader MIS conversation.
Absolutely. So let's look at this evolution. 1979, CompuServe. Most people associate the birth of e-commerce with the launch of Amazon, right?
Yeah, that's the standard assumption.
But 1979 is the era of dial-up modems and, green command line screens.
It is. CompuServe pioneered the space by allowing users to share files and access basic information remotely. And from there, the timeline of digital commerce just accelerates at a breakneck pace.
So what are the big milestones?
Well, the World Wide Web officially launches in 1991. By 1994, Pizza Hut is actually taking online orders.
Oh, wait, Pizza Hut in 1994?
Yeah, people were ordering pizza using early web browsers like Netscape Navigator. And just 2 years after that, total online e-commerce transactions crossed the $1 billion threshold.
$1 billion in 1996. That is wild.
And the momentum only compounded. If you look past the rollout of targeted social media advertising, past digital wallets like Apple Pay by 2019, Cyber Monday sales were hitting nearly $10 billion.
In a single day.
Right, in a single 24-hour period. But, the sheer volume of money isn't even the most interesting part. It's how the definition of the transaction has evolved.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the phrase selling things online is a highly outdated way to view e-commerce today. It's not just a digital catalog anymore. It is a comprehensive, dynamic business model.
So what defines the current landscape then?
Today's landscape is heavily defined by the Internet of Things, or IoT. It's defined by location independence, meaning cross-border selling, where currency conversions and taxation happen in milliseconds.
Plus the integrated mobile experiences and AI managing the whole thing.
Exactly. Artificial intelligence is the foundational layer managing that entire complex process.
I want to look specifically at a trend called Recommerce, because this is fascinating. This is selling used or obsolete products online for cash or trading them for new
Oh,
products.
like ThreadUp or The Real Real.
Yes, exactly. They've essentially turned the traditional thrift store into a high-tech industry. It feels like this massive, global, digitized garage sale, but backed by huge corporate logistics.
This is a massive logistical challenge for sure.
So how does IoT specifically transform that modern shopping experience? Because you're moving thousands of unique, used items.
To understand that, you really have to look at what IoT does at the physical level. It connects everyday physical objects to the digital network using embedded sensors and software.
Okay, so how does that work in a re-commerce warehouse?
Well, you aren't dealing with pallets of 10,000 identical televisions. You are dealing with one specific vintage denim jacket or one specific used designer handbag.
Right. Every item is totally unique, a single ski.
Exactly. So IoT means putting an RFID tag, a radio frequency identification tag, on that single specific jacket.
So the physical object essentially broadcasts its own existence to the database.
Precisely. The jacket reports on itself. As it moves through the warehouse, automated scanners read that RFID tag without any human intervention.
That is incredibly efficient.
It is. The system knows exactly which bin it is in. It can monitor the temperature of the storage facility,
Yeah.
and the moment that jacket is placed on a delivery truck, the IoT sensor registers the movement.
And I imagine it updates the database and emails the customer automatically.
Right. It takes the friction out of a highly complex physical supply chain by turning physical movement into searchable, manageable data.
And when you remove that physical friction, you unlock the core characteristics that make this digital landscape so powerful. Let's talk about Ubiquity.
Ubiquity is a huge one. It's the ability to have a presence everywhere simultaneously.
Right, because a physical retailer has operating hours and a front door. A digital storefront is open 24/7 from anywhere. And that bleeds directly into global reach.
Oh, the reach is staggering. The statistics show that 90% of global internet users aged 16 to 64 visit retail sites, and 74% have actually bought a product online.
74%. But the characteristic that seems to disrupt traditional business strategy the most is information density.
Information density fundamentally alters the balance of power between the buyer and the seller.
How so?
Well, it refers to the total amount and quality of information available to everyone in a market. In a highly dense information environment, communication and data storage costs plummet.
But the accuracy and timeliness of that data skyrockets.
Exactly. And for management, the critical outcome of this density is that it creates two very specific types of transparency.
Price transparency and cost transparency, which essentially means the consumer can finally see behind the curtain.
They absolutely can.
Because price transparency means I don't have to drive to 5 different car dealerships across town to compare prices. I just open 5 browser tabs and instantly know who has the cheapest vehicle.
Right, that's price transparency. But cost transparency takes it a step further. It means the consumer can find out exactly what the seller actually paid for the product.
Wait, really? So I can know their baseline cost?
You can. Consumers can discover what the dealership paid the manufacturer. And historically, traditional retailers were absolutely terrified of that.
And I would be too. If consumers know exactly what a business pays and what all the competitors charge, doesn't that just destroy profit margins?
You would think so. The assumption was that the market would devolve into a race to the bottom, where everyone undercuts everyone else until there's no profit left.
But that didn't happen. Corporate profit margins haven't vanished at all.
No, they haven't.
So how does management counter that transparency? If I know your costs, how are you still maximizing your profit on me?
Businesses counter it by weaponizing that exact same information density. They collect massive amounts of data on the consumer to segment the market. They use it to execute dynamic price discrimination.
Oh, like how the airline industry operates.
That is the perfect example. The airlines know you have price transparency, but they also have your browsing history, your geographic location, and years of your purchasing data.
So they know exactly who is buying the ticket.
Exactly. They know if you are a leisure traveler booking a flight to Orlando on a Tuesday night, 3 months in advance, or if you are a corporate executive desperately searching on a Friday morning for a flight leaving that afternoon.
Wow. So they use information density to segment you into a specific risk and urgency profile.
Right, and they alter the price of the exact same seat based on what their algorithm calculates you specifically are willing to pay.
So it is totally a two-way street. The consumer can see the broader market prices, but the business can see the consumer's psychological urgency.
Exactly. It's a data arms race.
And that reliance on consumer data brings us directly to personalization and customization, how businesses interact with us on a micro level.
Right. And understanding the critical difference between those two terms is vital for anyone designing an information system.
So break them down for us. What is personalization?
Personalization happens entirely within the marketing layer. It is crafting marketing messages tailored to an individual based on their data.
Like when an e-commerce site sends an email using my name saying, based on your recent purchase of a tent, you might need these hiking boots.
That is exactly personalization. The hiking boots sitting in the warehouse haven't changed. The manufacturing process is identical. Only the presentation of the product was altered to fit your profile.
Which means customization must happen at the actual product level.
You got it. If personalization is just changing the marketing wrapping paper, customization is adjusting the actual product or service offering based on user preferences.
So when I order a computer online and I manually select a faster processor and a specific graphics card, that's customization.
Right, because the business alters the physical assembly of the product to meet your exact specifications. It requires a much more complex supply chain.
Because the final product isn't even determined until the moment the transaction occurs. That's a huge shift in operations.
It is. Both of those strategies require the business to maintain tight control over their data. But there is a massive driver of e-commerce that businesses cannot fully control, which is user-generated content, or UGC.
UGC. We're talking about the unpaid contributors here, right? The customers, the brand fans promoting a brand via reviews, blogs, and social media.
Exactly. And from a business professional's perspective, UGC is highly trusted, free marketing. It builds immense brand presence.
Because consumers trust a detailed 5-star review from a real person way more than a slick corporate ad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But to leverage it, the business have to surrender a significant amount of direct control over their brand narrative.
Right, because if they ship a defective batch of products, the UGC ecosystem is going to broadcast that failure globally in real time. You can't just delete a bad review ecosystem.
You really can't. You have to publicly manage the fallout.
Now, depending on who the end user is, whether they're customizing a personal item or a business order, the transaction model completely shifts. Let's decode this alphabet soup of e-commerce transaction models.
Let's do it. There are a few major ones to keep straight.
Let's start with C2C, consumer to consumer.
That's your online marketplaces where individuals sell to other individuals. eBay or Craigslist are the classic examples.
Got it. What about C2B, consumer to business?
This flips traditional retail. This is where consumers provide services to businesses, often via a bidding system. Think of a freelance graphic designer selling a logo to a startup on Fiverr.
Okay, and then there's C2A, consumer to administration.
Right. That occurs anytime you interact digitally with a government body, paying your taxes online or paying university tuition through a web portal.
That makes sense. Shifting to the business side, we have B2C, business to consumer.
That one is simple. It just mimics traditional brick-and-mortar retail, but the internet is the store. You go to a website, put shoes in a cart, and buy them.
But the model that involves massive scale is B2B, business to business.
Oh, B2B dwarfs B2C in terms of volume. This often involves large quantities in recurring orders. Think office supplies for a massive corporation or medical equipment for a hospital.
They aren't going to a website and clicking add to cart for 50,000 pairs of surgical gloves.
No, it's machine to machine. It's deeply integrated supply chain software.
And finally, B2G or B2A, business to government or administration. How does that differ from just normal B2B?
It's all about the regulatory framework. B2G is characterized by pre-negotiated contracts and the formal request for proposal, or RFP, bidding process.
So a government agency publishes a highly detailed RFP, and businesses have to bid on it with exact specifications.
Exactly. You can't just invoice the Department of Defense. It is a highly formal, regulated process.
You know, it's funny to think about, but a single person could interact with all these models in one day.
Oh, easily.
Like you wake up and buy a desk on Craigslist, which is C2C. Then you sell some freelance graphic design to a corporation on Fiverr, so that's C2B.
And then your day job could be at a company that just won a government contract via an RFP, which is B2G.
It's all interconnected. But to see these models operating at the highest level, we really have to look at the massive global e-commerce giants.
The scale of these giants is hard to even comprehend. In 2020, the global e-commerce market was expected to hit $4.2 trillion.
Trillion with a T.
Yes. And geographically, China dominates with nearly $2 trillion of that, while the U.S. was expected to reach about $600 billion.
And the key players reflect that divide. In the US, Amazon completely dominates with a 47% market share, pulling in $280 billion in revenue.
But contrast that with China. Alibaba generated $56 billion in revenue, but they hold a massive 60% market share in their region. And they operate right alongside JD.com, which had $70 billion in revenue.
It's a clash of absolute titans. But the one thing driving growth for all of them, regardless of geography, is m-commerce, right? Mobile commerce.
Absolutely. M-commerce is a subset of e-commerce conducted entirely via wireless devices.
So mobile banking, digital wallets like Apple Pay, in-app purchases. But I have to ask, is m-commerce really just e-commerce on a smaller screen?
A lot of people think that, but no, it's fundamentally different
Why is that?
because of location-based services, or LBS. The mobile device moves with you, and it constantly relies on geodata stored in a geographic information system, or GIS.
Okay, so the GIS maps the physical world and the phone interacts with it.
Exactly. It makes MAM-commerce context-aware and location-aware. This enables things like geosocial apps or geo-information.
And geo-advertising, right? Geo-targeting based on your GPS.
Yes. A business can set up a digital perimeter and push an ad for a discounted coffee right as you walk past their physical shop.
That is so powerful. It shifts the phone from just a screen to an active tracking beacon. Are there other concrete examples of this?
Oh, definitely. Think about healthcare apps filling prescriptions, like Walgreens letting you scan a barcode.
Yeah.
Or, the ultimate example, retail innovation, like IKEA's augmented reality app.
Oh, the AR app where you can see the furniture in your house.
All right. It superimposes a 3D digital model of a couch into your live camera feed, scaling it to your actual room's dimensions.
So you evaluate the product in your physical space before you buy it. But, a business can't just stumble into mobile targeting or augmented reality. It requires a highly structured plan.
It requires a rigorous strategy. And that brings us to the e-commerce presence map.
Okay, let's break that down. What does the map do?
It maps 4 types of presence against specific platforms and activities. The 4 types are email, offline media, social media, and websites.
So for email, the platform might be an internal list, and the activity is sending newsletters.
Exactly. For offline media, the platform is TV or print, and the activity is branding and education.
And social media is Facebook or X, focused on engagement, while the website is for search and the actual point of sale.
You have to map it out so you don't use the wrong tool for the job. And once that's mapped, management follows a 6-phase timeline to actually build it.
6 phases. Let's list them quickly. Phase 1 is planning.
Phase 2 is web development. Phase 3 is implementation, which includes SEO or search engine optimization.
Then phase 4 is the media plan. Phase 5 is social media implementation. And finally, phase 6 is mobile platform planning.
It's a very linear, sequential roadmap, but executing it costs a lot of money, which brings up the cost of doing business, specifically customer acquisition costs, or SAC.
The dreaded CAC. This is the metric used to assess the sales and marketing costs of convincing a potential customer to buy.
The math is very straightforward. If a company spends $50,000 on marketing in a month and they get 5,000 new orders from it,
You just divide them. So the TAC is $10 per customer,
right, you spent $10 just to get that person to check out.
which perfectly loops back to that loyalty statistic we mentioned earlier. Acquiring that new customer costs 5 times more than keeping an old one.
It is so much more expensive to constantly hunt for new buyers.
And your success rate of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70% compared to just 5 to 15% for a new prospect. The math demands retention.
It does. But keeping those existing customers loyal means keeping their data safe. And that brings us to the massive vulnerabilities involved in digital business.
Data theft is the premier threat here. The statistics from the text are terrifying. The average cost of a data breach is $3.9 million.
Which breaks down to roughly $150 per compromised record.
But the worst part is the timeline. It takes an average of 279 days just to identify and contain a breach.
Can you imagine? For almost a year, hackers are just silently siphoning off data, and the business has no idea.
And when it finally breaks, the loss of consumer trust can be fatal to the brand. But beyond security, businesses face huge ethical responsibilities too, right?
Absolutely. They have to ensure product listings are completely accurate since the buyer can't physically hold the item. They have to adhere to complex global online selling laws.
And they have an ethical and legal imperative to ensure their websites are accessible to persons with disabilities using screen readers and proper navigation.
It is a massive management burden. To handle these huge data sets, secure the transactions, and optimize operations at this scale, businesses are increasingly handing the wheel over to artificial intelligence.
AI is truly the foundation now. Let's detail how AI is integrated across e-commerce operations, starting with customer support.
AI chatbots are everywhere now, but they rely on natural language processing, or NLP.
So it's not just keyword scanning anymore.
No, NLP allows the system to actually interpret the context of human language. It can do multilingual real-time translation. It even uses predictive assistance.
Predictive assistance, meaning it identifies issues before they escalate.
Exactly. It might notice a batch of products is failing and automatically email return labels to everyone who bought one before they even complain.
See, that sounds great, but I have to challenge this based on the textbook. It states that 76% of surveyed users express frustration with current AI chatbots.
That is a very high frustration rate.
Right. So are businesses sacrificing long-term user loyalty just for automated efficiency?
It is the ultimate balancing act for modern management. While AI reduces downtime and costs drastically, if it's using outdated data or poor NLP, it creates massive friction. Customers feel ignored.
So the front end has to be managed carefully. What about the back end? Inventory and logistics.
AI is amazing here. It handles automated reordering via trigger points. When stock gets low, the AI orders more automatically.
Plus warehouse robots working 204/7, picking and packing,
Huh?
and real-time tracking using those IoT RFID tags we talked about earlier.
It's a hyper-efficient supply chain. And the AI also handles pricing, specifically dynamic pricing,
Adjusting prices in real time based on supply, demand, or even the weather.
or competitors' prices. AI also personalizes that pricing based on an individual's browsing history, like we saw with the airlines.
To maximize profit on every single transaction.
Yeah.
But to do that, they have to know what people will buy tomorrow. How do they anticipate demand?
They use predictive analytics, specifically a statistical tool called regression analysis.
Explain regression analysis really simply.
It's using historical data, like past web traffic, POS data, or weather, to mathematically calculate the relationship between different variables, allowing them to execute dynamic forecasting.
So it predicts future sales based on historical patterns.
Exactly. And the final piece of the AI puzzle is fraud detection.
Because with millions of transactions, humans can't audit them all.
Right. Machine learning algorithms perform anomaly detection, and they do this using a technique called feature engineering.
What does feature engineering actually mean?
It means the AI takes raw data points, like the time of purchase and the IP address location, and combines them to create a new feature or metric. It continuously learns from this data collection and model training.
So it gets smarter over time at blocking stolen credit cards without blocking real customers.
Exactly. It's an incredibly sophisticated ecosystem.
It really is. Well, I want to thank you, the listener, for joining us on this deep dive into Module 10. We've covered how these concepts really bridge the gap between abstract technology and real-world business strategy.
It's a lot to process, but it's the reality of modern business.
It absolutely is. And before we go, I want to invite you once again to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show. And please leave a comment below to answer our discussion question for today.
I'm excited to hear the answer to this one.
Here is the question. Think about a local brick-and-mortar business that you frequent. Based on what we discussed today, how could they implement an e-commerce presence map to expand their reach? And which transaction model, like shifting to B2C or B2B, would best serve their future growth? Let us know in the comments.
I'm really looking forward to reading those strategies.
Me too. And for a quick sneak peek at what's coming up next time, in Module 11, we'll explore competitive advantage. We are going to look at how businesses leverage the exact information systems we discussed today to not just survive, but completely outmaneuver their rivals in the global market. You won't want to miss it.
It's going to be a great session.
But before we sign off, I'll leave you with this thought. If artificial intelligence reaches a point where regression analysis perfectly anticipates your demand before you even know you want something, and dynamic pricing extracts the absolute maximum you're willing to pay, at what point does e-commerce stop being a marketplace of free choices and start becoming an automated tax on human psychology? Something to chew on this week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.